Excuse me, could you repeat the question?
What is the strategy of the EU now after all what happened?
Well, first of all, I think that, and today we're going to discuss this, I'm sure, that EU showed some really good action immediately after the events that happened on Sunday. I think that the messages that were sent from the Council, from the leaders, they were really strong, and they made a point. Now we need to discuss on the concrete sanctions, because there is no list, no real idea. My suggestion would be that we adopt the fourth package that we've been discussing for quite a while, and then we start a discussion on the new possible sanction list, what we call fifth sanction list. But to add to that, I think that we need not to look at this Sunday's event as an isolated event. The whole escalation has started since last year in Belarus after the election, and we really need to look at it strategically. What Europe's answer to the events in Belarus, to Lukashenko's rule, should be in the future.
Are you disappointed that there is no strategy?
Well, you know, Europe is usually reactive. That means that something happens abroad and then we react. But I think that we can also, especially in the eye of these events, we can act proactively. We know what's going on in Belarus. Actually, you know, Lukashenko is playing with Putin and trying to and helping Putin to annex the country. So we should send the signals to Russia as well that annexation wouldn't go well with Europe.
Would you say that Russia is responsible for deciding?
No, we don't have this sort of information. But in my opinion, I'm quite convinced that Russia knew about what's going on in Minsk.
And if we're talking about economic sanctions, or where should they be targeted?
Well, I think that we haven't had a discussion about the possibility to have sectoral sanctions. So not companies, not individual companies, not individual people, but talk about the sectors that actually benefit the regime most. We could talk about the oil product sector. That could be one option, but it hasn't been discussed yet. So it's I'm just presenting my opinion, but it's a bit too early to talk about the consensus.
Are you worried that this will harm citizens in Belarus?
Yes, and that discussion was going on since last year's election. It is also a discussion in my country that we really need to find the sectors, the companies who actually benefit the regime, but not hurting the people who actually, because there's so many people. Last year, you obviously remember that people had took part in the protest themselves. While working in the companies, so we wouldn't want to harm them, or at least, you know, try to save them as much as possible.
You just said that you think that Lukashenko helps Putin to annex the country. It's quite a word. So why?
Well, I mean, we don't recognize Lukashenko as a legitimate president, right? So now he's working to change the constitution that would possibly create a single country out of Belarus and Russia. So what word would you use if that happens? If an illegitimate president unites two countries, signs the constitution, then in my opinion, it's a Crimea just on a bigger scale.
Should Europe change its attitude towards Russia too?
Well, it's happening. It's happening, you know, since 2014 when the discussion about economic union and economic, not union, but a common ground for trade and cooperation from Vladivostok to Lisbon. That was the idea. So you see how far have we went. But it.
In your opinion, what should be the strategy versus Russia then?
Well, I think that first of all, we need a strategy towards Eastern Partnership. We need an Eastern strategy. There are so many countries, so many people who actually strive for European path. Some of them, like Ukraine and Georgia, or Moldova, they actually chose Europe as their strategic partner. Belarus and people in Belarus, they strive for democracy. In Armenia, people strive for peace. And they all seek more Europe to be involved. So I think that first of all, we need to hear what they're saying and be active in the region.
Russia, you can't cut the ties with them, so...
No, I mean, you cannot cut the ties, but you can work with the countries that actually are looking for more partnership.
You said that there's nothing on the table right now for economic sanctions, but if it were, do you think especially countries like Germany or France, they are willing to pay the economic price because that will hurt them as well?
Listen, I mean, it's a start of debate. The fourth package was already discussed. Therefore, I believe that it's possible to adopt it. About further steps, as I said before, I mean, we know, in Europe we build consensus. So it's early stages. We don't know where it will go, how far it will go. But at least at this point, I think that the events that happened with forced landing of Ryanair flight, they really are helping now to build a consensus, because the countries are seeing that this is an actual threat, and we need to be very firm that this wouldn't give an idea to other dictators and to Lukashenko as well, that this cannot be repeated in any way. Okay, thank you.